a very good morning to you. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamon and Isabel. And these are the front pages of today's newspapers.
The Telegraph is reporting that Rishi Sunak will splash the cash to help the poorest communities during the energy crisis. It also features an image of the Duchess of Cambridge playing rugby after she was announced as the new patron of the game.
The Mirror claims it's D-Day for Britain as the energy crisis continues to hurt the poorest families.
Times headline says that those struggling to pay their bills will be given rebates on their council tax.
Pressure on the Prime Minister after more Conservative MPs called for him to resign, says The Guardian. Front page also features a photograph of the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Cressida Dick, after recent allegations of racism were raised.
Here's the Metro, featuring that picture again of the Duchess of Cambridge in action on the rugby pitch yesterday.
She's very at ease holding that ball.
She is. She's a sporty one, isn't she? And they're also leading with the headline about those 4 Russian aircraft which were detected near British airspace yesterday ahead of Boris Johnson's call with Vladimir Putin. OK, that's the papers that you're waking up to here to go through the inside of those. We've got Michael Portillo and we've got Kate Hardcastle. Yes, so Kate, let's kick off, shall we, first of all, with this story that you've chosen from the FT, which is a really interesting one about the right to repair our own tech. What's it about?
So there's a lot of call on the manufacturers, particularly in America right now, to understand how they can give better service to us as customers on this right to repair. You and I guess, are in a culture where it's normal that we have this continual upgrade thing going on. You know, the back breaks, get a new one. The phone's not working anymore, it's slowing down, get a new one. We need to evolve that for many reasons, environmentally and ethically, but also in terms of cost of living. So are our tech giants going to enable us to repair our own devices? Are they going to make that affordable? And is that something we should look into? There are many bodies here in the UK, including the university facility in London, that has proven that we as consumers, unsurprisingly, want this change. And it's something that could be forced upon manufacturers effectively in the future.
Well, it's always historically hard to force things onto these tech giants, though, isn't it? I mean, they don't really want to do it. It's not in their business model to make it obsolete. What I would force on, first of all, is one charger, no matter what your phone is. The idea that you've got to buy different chargers for different phones. And also, it always makes me feel so puny because when you go back to our parents' generation, most men could fix most things. And are you as useless as me, or...?
Well, I could only ever do a 3-point plug. That was my maximum.
It's because you learnt that at school, did you?
No, I think I learnt it around the home, but it's true. There's just basically nothing you can do now.
Nothing. It's broken. Get a new one.
And for you and me now, even light bulbs are getting a bit beyond us.
Yeah.
Do you want another story?
I know. I'd love one. What have you got?
Well, there's a new aspect to the sort of culture war, because at Jesus College, Cambridge, there is a memorial in the chapel to Tobias Rustat.
Who is?
He was a donor to the college and also to the new St Paul's Cathedral in London in the 17th century, but he was also involved in the slave trade because he invested in the Royal African Company, which made its money out of slavery. So for the first time, this is being tested in a court because the application to remove this statue is being heard before a consistory court with the QC making a decision. And the way this is presented in the Telegraph is a clash between Oxford and Cambridge, because Cambridge College wants to remove the statue. Some Oxford professors are key witnesses on the other side. If I can give a view on this, Britain is built on slavery. And we really have to understand this. I mean, St Paul's Cathedral was built with funds that were from slavery. It was absolutely the norm. It was the norm in Britain. It was the norm in the world. We were heavily engaged in the African slave trade. Many Africans were involved in the African slave trade because they brought the slaves from the interior, they kidnapped them, they brought them to the ports where Europeans took them over to the Caribbean and to America and to South America. So we have to understand this. I don't think we can just go around tearing down individual statues. That doesn't deal with it. Of course we have to recognise that this was our history. But, you know, piecemeal chipping bits of stone out of chapels, I don't think is going to do it. I don't think it's the right thing to do.
It's interesting because the last time this sort of thing appeared in a court was, of course, the Colston statue in Bristol, and, of course, Bristol,
yes.
Places like Liverpool in the north, very much these port cities built on slave money. And there is this whole debate about whether, is this a generational thing, or is this just that, the younger folk really offended by history? Where do we need to go cancel culture, becoming normal?
Well, it's about education, and it's also about knowing what we are going to do if the frustration and the anger isn't to be directed towards us, statues, then where does it go, Michael? What do we do with it? We have to at least demonstrate the retrospective we've now been given with time and understand that we as a nation are doing more about it. I don't feel where people have an outlet. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but where did they go? What do they do with that? Where did they see that things are actually going to be listened
to? Well, traditionally, universities were about learning, they were about debate, they were about controversy, they were about argument, and that's what universities should be about. So they're not about tearing down things, they're about having it out in public.
Maybe it's because everything's down to 240 characters now and trying to solve world issues in very small, succinct statements and not longer debate like we used to.
Yeah, a lot to be said about that. OK, look, let's turn to this piece that you've chosen in the Mail, Kate. Millions of pieces of Lego lost to the sea in 1995. One woman has attempted to find all the pieces. Has she gone mad or is she onto something?
No, I think she's onto something, and I'm going to be that person this morning. I make no apology for it. 90% of everything we consume pretty much comes into us on a container. And when you think about the pollution of 30 million tonnes of plastic waste going into our seas every year, it's a real issue. In fact, I have an idea, which I know I'm going to get grief for, but I don't care. We went, because of the staycation element, going out, picking up plastic on the beach with the kids before we'd let them play on any of the beaches last year. And I think there should be a levy that a toll almost, if you go onto the beaches, you should pick up 5 minutes of plastic to make a difference.
You do always see people now on the beach doing that. You can't really do a beach trip, I don't think, nowadays, without seeing somebody litter picking.
We should all have to do it.
I did some filming around this last year in Cornwall, and it's interesting if you just look, because I don't normally look. As soon as you look, the beach is absolutely full of tiny specks of plastic because they break down into these little tiny balls. It is horrifying how much plastic there is out there.
And, on this story, it's about 5 million pieces of Lego going missing in 97. But the fact is, those were collected because they had worth. So people went to Cornwall to find them because they wanted to car boot or keep the Lego pieces. So we have to put worth and value in terms of the planet and the benefit we could get from doing the right thing.
Beach combing for the benefit of the planet. I like it.
This situation is front page of The Guardian. The Met Police Commissioner Cressida Dick and this latest police racism scandal. Michael, you want to talk about this?
Well, the Met is just rocked by one scandal after another. Of course, we know that Wayne Couzens, a serving Metropolitan Police officer, was convicted of the kidnap, murder and rape of Sarah Everard. We know that 2 other police officers were sent to prison for doing selfies with the bodies of 2 women who had been murdered. And now at Charing Cross, we have this situation where a number of officers, more than 10 anyway, were involved in text messages which were racist, homophobic, misogynistic. So the Home Secretary has said that she does not believe that these are isolated incidents. She thinks there is a real cultural issue. Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, has got involved and said that he's put Cressida Dick on notice. How many times over the decades could we have had this conversation about the Met in crisis? How many times could we have spoken about the culture of the Met? And we're about to, or we have now, entrusted an investigation by the Met into what happened at 10 Downing Street. So, in a way, the future of the Prime Minister is determined by this police force. And I must say, it's not a police force in which I have any great confidence. By the way, the icing on the cake is that one of the officers who was involved in the internal inquiry in which all these messages were revealed and he was disciplined was, of course, then promoted from constable to sergeant.
Well, if I may use you as the voice of someone from outside the London bubble, do stories like this that are quite clearly levelled at one particular force actually result in people losing faith right across the country in police officers? It undermines the role and the hard work that officers at all the different constabularies and forces have to do.
Well, of course it does, and I think that you wouldn't go too far to find other forces that have got experiences with challenges as well. I mean, when you talk about culture in a workplace environment is huge to change. It takes a lot of doing, a lot of commitment. So I think we want, again, deeds, not words here. What does that look like? Who's going to change it? Who are the outside influences going into that environment that stop that mentality? I'm sure for every great person out there, unfortunately, we know there are people that are using that as some kind of bizarre authority to try and stamp their ground with people because they think they can. We've got to change it because we should have trust and faith in that authority.
But I would say to all of us sitting at this table today, we do live in a rarefied atmosphere because when you go out and you speak to other people, and I'll not name professions or jobs that they're in, and you have casual conversation with them, the type of language used, we live in a very politically aware environment, almost woke at times, and we're very aware of those sort of things. But in the real world, you will be quite shocked as to how people speak. And the culture within something like police forces or fire brigades or, various things, maybe the army, would
perhaps
be
very masculine and perhaps a lot of
completely different than what we would be used to.
I think you make a valid point that we live in a rarefied world and there is a divide between what goes on, say, in the TV world and the rest of the country. However, I think it's pretty important that our police officers be not racist, homophobic.
But I think one of the points I'm trying to make is there is an obvious lack of leadership on that front, and there is an obvious lack of education with it. I mean, maybe socially we would be much more aware what to say or what not to say as well.
Well, I think Kate makes a very good point that cultures take a very long time to change. But the Macpherson report into the Metropolitan Police was what? 20 years ago, was it? Was it more than 20 years ago? So we have literally been talking for decades about the culture of the Met. We've had one commissioner after another who's come in saying they're determined to change it, and indeed that it has changed. I mean, it's frequently been asserted that it has changed. It clearly has not. And, whilst different groups in society may have different ways in which they converse, I entirely accept that. If you're in the public service and you're dealing with the public, and the public includes women, and it includes racial minorities, and it includes gay people, then public servants cannot, even privately amongst themselves, communicate in this manner, because then they're not giving a service to the public. So I accept your point of view up to a point, but I don't think it's any kind of excuse.
No, it's not. It's not a point of view. It's an observation. Yes. I mean, I know, for instance, there is no way you would find in my phone messages like that. I just know that would not be me as a person. But I think there are other people who would see that as relatively normal for them. However, we object to it. So it is a thing within society, and it is a big image problem for the Met Police because, as you say, you seek protection from these people, you would seek guidance from these people, and maybe our police forces need to be slightly more gentle.
Just open, and people feeling that they can go and get the support that they need and that they are not going to be in any way dealt with one way or the other because of who they are. It should be an equal and fair play for all of us, and we should be able to trust the police. Absolutely.
OK, let's move on to the story about menopause. Hardly a day goes by without a menopause story. This is page 4 of The Times, Kate. Apparently a menopause cream that is doing magical things.
I'm glad that nearly a day doesn't go by without a story about it, because at 45, this is really important, and it affects 12 million women in the UK, which are going to be your viewers as well. And we need to take away the ridiculous taboo that makes this not a conversation. So it's talking perhaps that the government are looking into the potential of one product being available over the counter. Now, what we'll say in a brief amount of time, HRT comes in many different formats, and one format might not be suitable for everyone. So it's not the answer to everything. But having spent 20 years living with the taboo of endometriosis as an illness, I'm not prepared to spend another 20 years feeling worried about talking about going into perimenopause or menopause. We shouldn't have to rely on celebrities going out and doing a programme to talk about their situation, because every HRT situation is different. What we do need is to have a very sensible, grown-up conversation without people shirking about it or getting upset about it.
No, I 100% agree, Kate. But my journalist instinct, as soon as I see anything that says magic cream in it, I'm instantly suspicious that this is all nonsense. Is there any science backing up that this actually works?
This cream works for some people.
Right,
That's what I'm saying. HRT comes in many different formats, and we need to make sure. We have something like 200 HRT consultants for those 12 million women. It's not enough. That guidance needs to be there from a medical professional who's going to help you. But we need to up the ante on this,
Okay.
Now the whole controversial issue of transgender sports people.
Well, at the University of Pennsylvania, Leah Thomas has beaten her nearest rival by 38 seconds in the swimming pool, which is pretty amazing. But Leah Thomas competed for the university for 3 years, up to the age of 19, as a man. For the last 3 years, she has changed her gender. Well, as you can imagine, a lot of women at the university who are competing in swimming and being beaten by 38 seconds by Leah Thomas think that this isn't quite fair. And so this issue of what you do about people who change their gender in the world of sport, in the world of women's sport, is right there up front and big news in the University of Pennsylvania. And I guess this is going to have pretty serious consequences, because a lot of people are very unhappy about the situation.
Yeah. And look, some wings of the trans lobby are alarmingly aggressive, so I understand if you are afraid to express your opinion on it. But, do you think it's unfair? Do you think it's unfair that women have to compete against men who now are
But that's
women?
a yes and no answer to something that isn't simple.
Right.
These are people's lives, and if they're good at sport, then they need an opportunity to be able to perform at sport. So that's where I would start from. That's my basis. I don't know enough about it to say yes or no. What I need to make sure is that everyone gets the opportunity to do what they're good at in life and find a conduit to do that.
Interesting. OK.
Beatles, right. Daily Express. Beatles scrapbook sold for charity. How much, Kate?
I reckon up to £2,000. So this was just a quick question if anyone had anything in their attic, really, so I could take it back and try my luck on eBay. Because memorabilia still... The thing that amazes me is memorabilia still works.
I've been to an auction with you where you bought memorabilia,
I
so I
did.
know you've got a thing for this.
I do, I love it. It's a piece of history.
What was it that you bought?
I bought Burberry's only design of a certain jacket for Julie Walters.
It was there you go.
It was beautiful. But I think it's fantastic. And the great thing as well, we've got this big debate going on about, is there going to actually ever be any rock legacies like the likes of the Beatles, because life's different now, and how much that their iconography and their image still can raise these types of funds. Do you have anything, Eamon?
Well, funny enough, yesterday up popped on my phone an information piece that there was an online auction. And I looked at it, and it was for a TV programme that when I was a kid I watched a lot called Lost in Space. So I thought, what would I do with it even if I got bits and pieces? But I thought, this is very attractive to me. So I went on and I looked. Unfortunately, it was the remake, the film in 2018 of Lost in Space. So there was nothing, warning, Will Robinson. Did you not watch Lost in Space? No.
There's a photograph of me and Paul McCartney in 1991.
Oh, here we go. That's a cracker.
What do you think that would fetch?
I'd probably devalue it. No, I was once seriously tempted to buy John Wayne's eye patch and wig from True Grit, the Oscar-winning film.
Very great movie.
Very great movie. And basically, then, when my wife heard there's a wig involved in it, there's a wig, she didn't want this mouldy wig. But I really was seriously tempted. I don't know what I would have done with it.
I know what you would have done with it. You'd have put it on, and your John Wayne impressions would have gone up a notch. Because let me tell you, at least once a day he rocks out.
Fill your hands. Yeah, I could have done all that.
How much did it go for, though?
How much did it go for? It would have been thousands, 10,000 or so like that. So it would have been.
You see, there we go.
Guys,
Back in the attic yet?
Yeah. I have loads of junk. I have lots of football junk.
I thought you'd have some footy memorabilia. I don't have any memorabilia.
Gigs, boots. I've got
Nothing.
footballs. I've got grass from the Bernabeu Stadium, from the new camp. I've got all.
Can it
You're
still
a
like coming up a route round? I think I get a real
cash in the attic. We have
I think it's withered a bit, hasn't it?
It is withered a bit. It is. Guys, thank you both very much indeed. That's Michael Portillo and Kate Hardcastle.